Welcome to RadiantsAF. Today, we have got one of the most, we shall one say, controversial people in Web3. Somebody who actually a lot of people love and a lot of people hate. Ariel Givner, thank you so much for joining me today on RadiantsAF. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. I love Radiance. I love you. I love podcasting and all things talking. Super true. I'm very controversial. But if you don't have haters, then you're not doing something right?
There we go. Can we get a little bit of that?
Snaps
Now,
for me.
fantastic. There you go. What a time to be alive, right? I mean, obviously, we're going through a bit of a bear market, if one can call it that, or manipulation market, whichever one comes first. But the interesting part about this is the fact that there is so much to unpack, right? So much that's been going on. You yourself have actually been through the works in terms of being a part of really great projects. And obviously, this is how I do know of you and the great work that you have done. I think let's unpack a little bit about that. Like if we look at the intersection between law and Web3, you obviously founded Givner Law on the focus of things like securities and corporate and IP strategies, which you really come highly recommended for. Um, can you please tell me a little bit more about how you found that niche and how's it going?
I hate to say this, but I credit a lot of it to being right place at the right time. I focused on intellectual property in law school. That's what I specialized in when I graduated. I wrote my thesis on IP. I lived and breathed IP. I clerked for a judge. I really wanted to go into fashion law, despite my current outfit. I love fashion. I wrote for a fashion law website when I was in law school in lieu of being on a journal. And I fell in love with it. I'm located in Philly. And at that time, I was like 2008, 2019 when I was job searching. In order to move into that field, I would have had to move to New York. I didn't want to do that. I love New York City. I also love leaving New York City and coming home. So I love New York. I love going for a few days for a week, but I don't think
Yeah.
it would have been good for me to live there. So I went into private practice and then COVID hit. I was sent home. Everybody was working from home before it was now it's kind of the norm. Back then it really wasn't. You were going into an office 5 days a week doing the whole thing. And I found myself with a lot of free time because I was efficient at home. I was more efficient than being in an office. And then I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I have hours of free time. My mom's friend came over and said she made like $100 on Zoom stock. And I was like, you mean I can make money trading stocks? That's interesting. So I started day trading and I got kind of good at it. So I joined Twitter, I joined FinTwit, and I started just posting about some of the trades that I was making and getting into kind of the legal stuff about trading. And I don't know how, but I started generating followers. People ask me all the time how I did it. And to this day, I genuinely don't know. People just liked, I kind of I speak my mind. I don't really hold back. I call out bad actors. I kind of went into calling out small cap pump and dumpers, and I ended up then just day trading and making some side money off of it. COVID sort of ended. We all went back to work. I was trying to move meetings so I could trade the opening bell, and my boss was like, "You are so low on the totem pole. You absolutely can't do that." I was like, "Okay, that's so fair." Then I started trading crypto because the crypto casino is open 24/7. So I started pivoting my Twitter to crypto and ended up, made some friends also trading crypto. And they were like, "Hey, Gibby, have you ever heard of NFTs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're stupid. They're such a scam. I want nothing to do with it. I think those are garbage." And then I kind of looked into a little bit and I was like, okay, a lot of these are totally useless and serve no purpose. But then I started to find communities where I was like, oh, these are actually very cool. I discovered galactic geckos, I discovered MonkeyDAO, and I started making friends with people in these communities to the point where they were asking me, hey, can you do this trademark for us on the side? Can you review this agreement? And I was kind of like, holy shit, I think I might be able to do this on my own. So I talked to my parents and, obviously I was old enough to make my own decisions, but I just kind of wanted their feedback. And I said, listen, I've built enough of a client side list. I think I'm going to quit my job and start my own firm. And they were like, that's bananas. But if you think you can do it, do it. And I talked with them. I said I was going to have a lifespan of, if in 2 years I'm not profitable, I'll go back, I'll find a job at a firm. And now I'm on, I think, year 5. And it was just
Wow.
very much right place, right time, putting myself out there, not being scared of, the trolls or the haters, because they're always going to exist. And I've always been very outgoing. I've always kind of done things not the norm. My parents own a small business. So, I grew up watching them not answer to anybody but each other. And so I
Yeah.
definitely had an authority problem, like from the start. I was like, I can't listen to another person. And it just, I took the leap and it just worked. And I'm very thankful that it worked every single day because I know how lucky I was and how, I mean, don't get me wrong, I put a ton of effort into it. I still do. I live and breathe work. But yeah, that's what happened. It's been I've been very blessed.
You definitely are blessed, and we are all blessed to have you in the Web3 space. The other thing I'd like to say is just a side note. We can see that you have that authority problem. And that's why we would want you to actually be that representative of any project that is on Solana right now.
It's a blessing
That's
and a
obviously,
curse. It is a blessing and a curse.
no, it's
The
great. And
second somebody tells me I can't do something, I'm like, really? You want that? Okay.
I absolutely love that. I love that. And it's so great to have good people and people who are willing to go that extra mile as you have, with a lot of projects I know from the early days, especially with MonkeydAO, and how they have really, benefited from your expertise.
I
And
benefit from them. I actually credit a lot of my success to MonkeydAO and the connections that I've made through it. And, I learned a lot through MonkeydAO and working in MonkeydAO. And I really think without them, I wouldn't have been successful. I credit so much of my life to MonkeydAO. I will forever be grateful. Jemmy, Bibsy, Cersei, who's no longer there. I could go off and name a bunch of people, but they are
yeah,
absolutely amazing people.
yeah. And you know what? Let's not forget Nom Nom. We love
Oh,
that guy.
no,
A
I'm
big
the
teddy
deepest
bear.
in my heart. I talk to him pretty frequently. He's a great human being.
He really is. And that brings me to my next question, which would be, when you have any Web3 project that comes up to you and would like to obviously have your expertise, what are the three questions that you will generally ask them?
Good question. It's kind of a potential client by potential client basis. There's not really a one size fits all approach to it. The first thing I do is I do a deep dive on their socials. I see who's involved. Part of the benefits of being here so long is I feel like I really know the people in the atmosphere, in the ecosystem, not atmosphere, same thing. So I like to see who's involved. Obviously, I have my own personal opinions on people. I look at the past projects they were involved in, and I kind of do a risk analysis on my own by seeing, is this something that's actually serious? Is this something being started by individuals that are known ruggers or scammers that have maybe done some nefarious things in the past? I ask them if they have an entity set up. I ask them what their goals are. I ask them what they plan to do. And I kind of go through a whole analysis to find out what they need. Oftentimes, clients don't know what they need and they tell me that. And I say, great. So we're starting from square one. I ask a baseline set of questions depending upon what they come for me for. And it's really just working with them to figure out where they are, what they plan to do, and how I can best set up that foundation to make sure that if they do their best and actually put the work in, at least on the legal side, my T's are crossed, my I's are dotted, and at least from the foundational standpoint, they're set up.
That's quite interesting. And obviously, we have seen quite a lot of rugs in the past. Is there a way to mitigate that? And I mean, from your standpoint, being in law,
Mhm. I think it's such a deep question, even though it doesn't seem like it, because there are definitely responsibilities that fall on the consumers and the users, and then also the regulatory approach. We see so many bad actors that rug and scam and fraud. And I truly believe a lot of those principles already exist in Web 2 and can be applied to Web 3. It's just a matter of bringing those individuals kind of to justice. And crypto has a very small attention span. If there's no relief within a week, they kind of forget about it. And that's really a crux of an issue I'm facing in a lot of attorneys face, because oftentimes when you bring things to the courts, there's not a resolution quickly. And there's no instant gratification, which I think is a big pillar of crypto. People want to get rich fast. People want to have a successful project in like a week. And that's just not how the law works. Even with trademarks, people will say, we want a trademark. Can you get this filed for us within the next 3 days? Yeah, I probably can. But the United States Patent and Trademark Office isn't going to get back to you for 3 to 6 months. The system
Wow.
isn't designed to be immediate. And I think that that's a really
Yeah.
big kind of a misstep in between what people want and what the expectations aren't necessarily realistic. And then also from the consumer side, you have these bad actors that have, that have launched rug after rug after rug, and people still support them.
I think that is such a fair thing to say. And, we are actually the problem, right?
We are
The,
a big part of the problem because we call these
yeah,
people out. People love the engagement. They say like, "Oh my God, XXX and whoever is running another scam, run away from it." They're attaching a token to it, and then the next thing you know, that token's at a 20 million market cap, and people are tweeting about it. Like,
yeah,
excuse my mouth, but what the fuck are you doing? Like, we are a part of the problem.
yeah,
People have such short memories, and it's so frustrating because I get clients that are like, I want to sue this person. They defrauded me out of X amount of money. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you invested a lot of money in a project where you don't even know who the person is. They're not doxxed. There's no there's no foundation. There's no documents. You're pretty much just pissing away money. And my favorite thing to tell people is I'm an attorney. I'm not a magician. Like I can't just make your money come back. People have to make smart choices. And I think that a lot of people don't. They don't treat their money like they've earned it. They treat it like they can just pick it up off the ground and get it back. And that's a really big problem.
I fully agree with that. And I also do feel like when you've tasted the fruits of a $20 going all the way to 10K, it
Amazing.
really does change a little bit of that psychology, right?
Oh, it's amazing.
Of
And I feel like I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I understand that so well. And I think that that's why people come to me because I really understand it. Wait, okay. Yeah. I interrupted you because I got so excited. I will have no problem pissing away $200 on a meme coin trade. And then my wife will be like, hey, we need to replace our grill. I found one at like $150. And I'm like, that's highway robbery. It's a grill. What do we need a $150 grill for? And she's like, that's a cheap grill. And I'm like, what do you mean that's a cheap grill? But also at
yeah,
the same time, I have no problem. Like and if I have that, so many people have that because that feeling of like $20 to $1,000 is so addicting. It's also
yeah,
so unrealistic.
yeah.
And we see it,
No,
and that's part of the timeline. People just shill their wins and nobody ever shills the losses. So we all have this unrealistic sense of how easy it is to make money. And that's just not real life.
that is true. And I think just to add to what you're saying, when one looks at being able to make those types of gains, and you look at traditional finance where you're waiting 2 years to get 10%, and then it's just like, maybe not. I mean, the S&P 500, they've generally been able to give consistently
Yeah.
10% year on year, right? That's sort of like the benchmark. Whereas here, people are dealing with 1,000% gain.
It's just
Who
not,
doesn't
it's
want
not
that?
real. It's just, I mean, even my parents, they were ecstatic when they discovered T-bills like 10 years ago. And they were like, yeah, we're getting consistent gains and it's like X%. And I'm like, that's nothing. And they're like, this is stable. And it's just, it
Yes.
just ruins your brain.
You know what? That's the difference, right? When you look at boomers and where they are in their life, obviously the largest group of people who have quite a bit of money, but everything about them is just like slow, easy, and it will just compound,
I
right?
wish I was that way. I'm slowly, the older I get, the more like, I haven't touched a meme coin in probably 4 or 5 months. That to me that's a detox because I absolutely had a gambling addiction to meme tokens. That's probably all of us do. And if you try and explain this to somebody that's not in the space, they look at you like you're crazy
They do. Like,
with
what
good
exactly is a
reason.
meme coin?
With good reason. Yeah. So I circling back, I do think we are a part of the problem.
We definitely are. And I suppose that will get me into the different types of errors that we have
Feel
within
like
the space,
90.
right?
I'll really feel like I'm 90 years old.
It kind of feels like that, right? Like if you've
Yeah.
been here for a year, it's like 10 years in like normie life,
Yeah.
right? Looking at the ICO era, um, probably when you started, right?
Mhm.
If you look at the ICO era and you look at where we are now, how are you finding governance as well as, let's say, for instance, the heavy compliance that people have had to sort of like adjust to? Have you found it to be quite easy?
Oh, nothing is easy, Miss Pope. Nothing
That's
is
true.
easy. I think we're in a different era right now. I mean, we actually have a government that is trying to work with us. I credit a lot of that to them. The Clarity Act, they're trying to give us guidelines to work with. And I don't think that that has been present before. So, people want this hybrid. They want it to be the wild, wild west. But then when bad things happen, they go crying and they're like, well, how can we get relief? And you can't have it both ways. So I think we're finally at a point where we're getting some guidance, and it's very needed. It's just different. It's just different. And that's partially why I think attorneys are needed, because it's still such a gray area. Um and until it's not, it's going to be a little bit uncertain. And I don't know how long that's going to be. I don't even know if I answered your question. I think I answered your question.
I think you did. I would like to
I
to
didn't,
also
for full
just
disclaimer, I didn't really participate in any of the ICO stuff. I think that was right as I was
okay.
getting involved.
Yeah.
And when I did that, I was strictly focusing on, just trademarks and kind of DAOs and things like that. So I didn't really have my foot in the door when it comes to monitoring ICOs and things like that. So I think that was a little bit either right before I entered, or it was right as I kind of entered, and I just wasn't focused on it.
That's perfectly fine. Look, I from my perspective, I really do feel like regulation could be a little bit more misunderstood.
Oh yeah.
And especially when we look at the era that we're currently living in, where you have a president who has got a lot of sway with what is happening in the Web3 space. And I'm choosing my words quite correctly, not only because I'm in Web3, but because I don't want to be pushed out of it. So there's that. So how does one actually, let's say, look at different types of regulatory aspects that are being enforced? I mean, obviously, we've got to first look at location. So, see, the Clarity Act is coming up in the states.
Yep.
You also have different laws that are coming around, popping up all over the world.
So in terms of regulations, they do differ whether you're in the US, you're in the EU. Um, the biggest thing I can say is, depending upon where your project is and what you're doing, even if it's just, you pay a few $100s for an attorney that knows those regulations in the region that you're in, because EU is so different than the US, it is absolutely worth working with somebody that can help you in the right direction, because the laws are very different. Like for me, if I have a client that's coming to me and they want to focus solely on EU laws and different things over there, I refer them out to another attorney that I know that is very well versed in EU compliance. So it's really a lot of it, instead of trying to understand it on your own, people like me, people like, the EU attorneys. I work with Joseph a lot at Access. He's fantastic at Access Advisory. They're very well versed in the EU. Um, it's really just talking to individuals that do this for a living. And I think that, having a consultation with somebody, even like a quick meeting, can help you understand what you're working with. And at the very least, do some Googling. I know everybody here is addicted to LLMs, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude. Obviously, they're not a substitute for an attorney, but you can ask it, I'm a company in Europe. I'm thinking of doing this. Can you give me the basics on what regulations I might face? Like just try and get some basic information. There's no reason to go into it blind at this point.
I love that. And I do feel that education is obviously where it
Yeah.
stems from. A
Mhm.
lot of people might just be in the whole, like, how does one say? They might be in the hype of everything, and I'm starting a project and they just continue with the project without necessarily looking
I have a lot of
at the
clients.
fine print. Yeah. Have
I have
have
a
you
lot.
found?
that come to me after they've launched and they're like, okay, we've gained hype. Can you help us set up? And
Yeah.
first I'm like, oh, you're doing it backwards. But yes, I can help you. It's better to do things a little bit late than not at all.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Have you, okay, so in that instance, do you find that with those certain people or those certain projects that they might have to pay a fine or anything like that? Or is better late than never the whole crux of it?
Better late than never is definitely a big part. Obviously, it's easier to
Yeah.
clean up. It's easier to prevent a mess than clean up a mess, which is what I really harp on. It's easier to get your ducks in a row from the beginning than go and try and wrangle them up afterwards. Um, Fines, I mean, with me, not necessarily. Ideally, they don't have any legal complications that they need to act on before they have an entity set up, or, they have an employee gone rogue that they haven't necessarily done a contract for. That makes things really tricky.
Yeah.
Um, so better late than never, absolutely. But also do it first. Um, Taxes late, that's where the fines really come in. People that don't do taxes and then try to retroactively do it. I don't handle taxes. Tax
Yeah.
law was actually one of the few classes in law school that I withdrew from because I was in there for 2 weeks. I was like, absolutely not. I'm getting out of this. I hate this. So I mean, I pay somebody to my taxes. Whenever there's a tax law question, I refer somebody out. That's where I would
Yeah.
really not throw caution to the wind and do things properly. But typically there's a way to fix things from a legal structure standpoint. It will definitely be more expensive.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot harder and takes up more time, but better late than never.
You forgot something when you said not necessarily with me. And then I was thinking, because you're a goat, and that's why.
Thank you.
So there's that.
I really do. I could make so much more money if I didn't have morals, but I really try and treat my clients fairly. And if they come to me and ask me to do something and I don't think it's possible or think I'm the right fit, I won't just sit here and say, yeah, for sure, we can definitely do this and then charge them a lot of money and do it incorrectly. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I wish I did, but I can't do that. So thank you for saying that because I do take a lot of pride in that.
No, you, from anyone and everyone that I've spoken to, I've even referred you to a project that I was having good conversations with. And it's simply, maybe it's a bit of nepotism because I do know you, but not know you, because, I wasn't invited to your wedding. So technically,
For what it's
I'm
worth,
kind
only
of like,
only two crypto people were only two.
it's okay. It's okay. I know that you didn't want to invite all the DJs. You just wanted to have just
If I
a
invited
few.
you, I'd have to invite
Yeah.
Kemo, and then I have to invite
Then it
Storm, and then
was,
it would have been
yeah.
messy, and then it would have just been like it would have just been like Ariel Gets Married featuring RadiantsAF.
Of course. And then that was going to be a problem because your parents were going to be like, listen, I don't know what that guy was speaking to me about the
Literally.
fact that I need to go and buy a Radiant and, it costs like
I would have loved
400
it. It just would have been
soul.
a good mess. It's a good mess. But yes.
No, but in all honesty, the one thing that I absolutely loved is the fact that you are somebody that I would definitely give a recommendation to anybody. And the reason being is because you are so pure of heart. And I love the fact that you are somebody who's going to be blatantly honest and be like, look,
Yep.
I cannot help you because, you're a rugger. Or alternatively,
I've
it's
said,
like,
I've
and
said that
that's the
in
next,
not so many words, but I've said that.
and this is the next question. Have you ever had ruggers come up to you, known ruggers in the space, and asked you to make something legit for them?
I've had known ruggers come up to the space and yell at me in person.
Oh,
That's always fun. That's a good time. I did cry at one break point because of something like that happened, and I don't cry easy. So that was fun. But honestly, no.
yeah,
I genuinely don't think ruggers ask for legal counsel. I just don't think that that's the thing. I can very confidently say that I haven't been involved with something that rugged or scammed people, and I think that I'm very proud of that. I have gotten to a point where I don't have to accept every client, and that's a really hard but very nice place to be in. I
yeah,
actually turned down a client this week just because I didn't think I was the right fit. I didn't necessarily like their plan, and it wasn't a good fit. And, that's a blessing and a curse to be able to kind of figure that out.
At CC Enterprises, we believe trading shouldn't rely on guesswork. It should be built on precision, discipline, and intelligence, powered by AI. For over 15 years combined, our team has built strategies used by a growing global community of serious traders and investors. As a member, you get access to AI-driven trading automation, expert-led education through our trading academy, and a private space to learn alongside people who take this as seriously as you do, the CC Club. But CC Enterprises is about more than markets. A portion of everything we build goes back into causes that matter, because success should create impact, not just returns. If you're ready to trade with precision and purpose, visit ccenterprises.io and scan the code to join our community on Discord.
That's interesting. I, for one, have definitely been in the space for quite some time, been part of a few rugs, and that was
It's like
quite
hazing.
painful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, I look at it as sort of it's kind of like you paid for school fees. So
It
now
literally
you've
is.
got your degree in
Yep.
Web3, right? I suppose the next question would be about what is currently happening. And I suppose with all the different DeFi projects that have been targeted of late, what would your thought process be in terms of what exactly is happening? I mean, all the was it? I think it's over $1 billion or so that has been stolen from these exchanges. Firstly, it's going to be a two-part question from the standpoint of the investor that has invested in the protocol. How do they go about getting their money back? And then on the other hand, for the actual protocol itself, um, could that have been prevented? Number one, and number two, do they or are they subject to a lawsuit by the people that have invested in them
I have to be very careful with how I answer this. Part two of your question, I can't answer, given something that I'm
at
currently
all?
at all. Given something that I'm currently involved with that isn't made public, I'm trying not to make it public in the hopes of a resolution. So that one I'm not going to touch. But the first one, make sure you're signing legitimate agreements. It's a lot harder to go after somebody if there's no paper trail. Do your due diligence. If you are investing in something, make sure it's a real entity. Make sure you sign some sort of investment document, whether it's a token warrant or a safe. Get something on paper and make sure you document everything, because if you do invest in something that does end up just taking investor money and running, you know, there's not going to be a resolution for every situation, but it's always worth bringing to an attorney and saying, I invested in XYZ. I don't think they tried anything. I think they just took our money and ran. What can I do? And that's where, somebody like me comes in and says, okay, let me see what you signed. Let me see how much money you put in. Let me see what they actually did. And if we can build a case off of it, then we can build a case off of it. But it's very hard to build a case if there's no paperwork. Like handshake deals, verbal agreements, those things, which happen so much, are very hard to work from. So if you're going to invest in anything, I know people angel invest all the time. I think it's great to a point. Just make sure that you're signing something. Make sure that it's being memorialized. Make sure you know what you're signing. And I also have people come to me saying, I want to invest in this. They've given me, this massive thing of paperwork. Can you review it for me? I love doing that. I love reviewing things and making sure that it's fair for both parties and making sure that it actually gives them some sort of recourse if said, company just takes their money and runs. So, if you can, in my opinion, if you can afford to angel invest, you can afford a few $100s to have an attorney review a contract. But I
That
might be a little
is
biased.
no. Well, you might be, but in actual fact, no. That I think that is really sound advice. You've recently commented about $200 that went missing
I
from
have.
Drift Protocol. And the one thing that you actually did mention, what you did speak about, was civil negligence. Could you unpack what civil negligence is? And also, how does one go about that?
I think it is best if I don't speak on it at this time.
Oh, is that okay? That's the one that you, okay.
I'm not
I'm
saying it
fine
is.
with you.
It might be related. It might be completely unrelated. But I think in the best
Right.
interest of the client, it's best I just don't answer anything regarding recent protocol hacks.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fair.
Sorry.
In plain language, where do the line?
Negligence at its basis is duty, breach, causation, damages. You had a duty to do something, you didn't do it. That duty was breached. Because that duty was breached, you were then damages.
Yeah.
Duty, breach, causation, damages. You had a duty, you breached it, that breach caused damages. Think of negligence. One of my favorite movies. I love it so much I can't think of the name. The acronym DCD, don't blame Cameron Diaz. Duty, breach, causation, damages. That's at the heart of negligence.
Okay.
All 101.
Interesting. One other question, and if you can't answer it, I do understand. But let's say in the scope of something like this happening, whether it's a DeFi protocol, whether it's any other type of protocol, and your funds miraculously end up in somebody else's wallet and is washed and miraculously ends up into different entities, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the case of something like that, would one have to have like a class action suit?
No,
Or
not
is
always.
it
No.
okay?
No, I don't ever bring class action lawsuits. I personally don't think they're always the best way to go about things. It's very commonly known that I'm going to probably take heat for this, but in class action lawsuits, the people that make out with the money are the attorneys. It's, you get notices all the time, like your data may have been breached in a class action by this service provider. Here's $10. Whereas the attorneys on the case probably made $1 million or $2 million. It's not always the best way for victims to get relief. A lot of the times an individual suit is this is a topic that some people won't agree with, and that's fine. I personally think going after it as an individual is probably going to lead to a better result if there is a result. Class action lawsuits can be very hit or miss. But I've represented individuals in the past that chose not to go with a class action lawsuit. Instead, we did a private lawsuit. So it's really the individual that was the victim has to look at the pros and cons. A class action might make more waves, but there are so many more steps involved. And then, they're not the only plaintiff. They're not getting probably a whole piece. They're not getting their whole piece of the pie. So it's really up to them how they want to move forward. I personally suggest if somebody finds themselves in that scenario, explore your options. Talk to a class action lawsuit lawyer. If you see somebody advertising, were you affected by this? Call us. Go talk to a lawyer that specializes in litigation. People usually don't charge for consultations. I personally don't. I know a lot of other attorneys don't. I know some big firms do, but most of the time attorneys won't. Go see what your options are. There's no harm in shopping around. You're not going to like every attorney that you meet with, and that's fine. I'm not the best fit for every client. Every client's not the best fit for me. That's totally fine. That's expected. Go out there, go talk to a class action attorney, go talk to an individual attorney that's going to bring you a private action possibly. See what works for you.
Yeah.
Explore your options.
I think that's quite interesting. And for myself, the reason as to why I really wanted you to be on the show is for those sorts of people who have invested in projects where they've been able to lose everything. For those types of people who do feel a bit of shame and, don't necessarily want to make a big thing out of it. Yeah.
There's no shame.
And
People
this
make
is,
mistakes all the time.
yeah. And this is why I really wanted you to be on the show so that you can give that education to certain people who might be going through that.
No shame. Seriously, people make mistakes all the time. And just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you had faith in something. And that's a very real human emotion to have. And, sometimes that can excite you. You're only going to get help if you ask for it.
Yeah.
And people come to me all the time. As we all know, I love Twitter. I love posting on Twitter. I also love not posting things on Twitter, mainly because I would lose my legal license. People tell me things in confidence I can't disclose. And, if you go to an attorney and say, I lost my entire life investing in something that just flopped, nobody's going to ridicule you. Nobody's going to make fun of you. Nobody's going to go, oh my God, you're so stupid. I'm going to go, holy shit, I'm so sorry. Let me try and help you.
Yeah. And we have seen that quite, I think more often than not, for everybody that has been in the space for maybe more than one cycle. Looking back and reflecting on things like that, we work very closely with founders in the space and people who are building quite a lot. My question to you would then be, how does one mitigate things like this, especially if you are planning on coming up with a project or you're building a DeFi protocol of some sort? What are the legalities, first of all, that you need to meet as a founder? If, let's say, for instance, there are quite a few ignorant founders out there who
What?
not know.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
On the off chance that there aren't.
Of course, obviously, hypothetically. I mean, it is kind of a case by case basis, but always have an entity of some sort, whether it's in the US or you never want to just do things personally. Always have an entity, even if it's just a single person LLC. Always have an entity, you know, mainly to shield you from personal liability. Obviously, there's ways around that if you really fuck somebody over, but always try and shield yourself through an entity. If you're hiring people, have a written agreement. I don't know why people don't. You know, they hear the word contract and they get scared. Contracts protect not only you, but also the person on the other end of it. You know, it's fair. A good contract is fair to both people. And I like to think of contracts as more of directions rather than a scary thing. You know, it tells you what's expected of you, what you're getting paid, what happens if you don't do your job, what happens if, you know, the company doesn't pay you. It just sets out the, you know, the foundation of what you're doing. And having that on paper is just so crucial. I've had so many clients come to me being like, hey, I did design work or developer work for this company and they told me they were going to pay me and they didn't. And my first question is, did you sign a contract? And more often than not, it's no. We just had a handshake agreement. And I go, I usually just go, like, if I could just beat it into people's heads, like literally just like get a contract.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to protect you from everything and people are shady, but it's a really good starting point. And if you're a founder, don't ever have people do things without a contract. Get things written down, get those contracts. If you're giving out equity, do it the right way. Make sure, you know, hire a lawyer. Honestly, get your contracts, get your entity, protect your IP. Those are really the basic things that every project should be doing, especially with IP. Let's say, like, I don't know, let's say you trademarked Ms. Pope. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I decided I'm going to, and you're very famous. You're well known as Ms. Pope. You have a trademark. You've protected your brand. I come out of the woodwork and I go, I'm going to make Ms. Pope Enterprises. I'm going to make all of my branding Ms. Pope. I'm going to spend $10,000 on branding Ms. Pope. I release my products, Ms. Pope services, whatever, all of my branding. And then you're like, hey, this is my trademark. This is going to cause consumer confusion. I'm going to cease and desist you. And then I go, I just wasted $10,000 in branding and now I have to completely redo my entire marketing stint. Make sure you're doing your brand around something that's available. People make that mistake a lot. Like, don't go out there and make Nike Trading Group. Don't, like, just have some common sense, you know?
And common sense does be lacking in this industry, isn't it? We have seen quite a lot of quite questionable things happening in the space, and I think a lot of people who have been in this space for quite some time will actually attest to this. I mean, we know with RadiantsDAO, so many of the different projects, as you had mentioned earlier, about you know, some of the founders actually, you know, going and doing derugs. Seb is one of the. I always joke with Seb. Actually, I always say to him, you know, we know that you rugged Balloonsville. We know that, and but actually, he was one of the guys who really loved the project so much and really wanted to. He really wanted to.
In a painful way.
It is, and the one thing that I found quite interesting at that time, I remember Seb talking about Balloonsville and how much he loved it, and then it rugged, and then he was heartbroken, and then all of a sudden he's like, no, we're gonna make sure that people get their money back, and I'm just like, I don't think that's ever been done in crypto, like ever.
Yeah.
Like,
That
like,
was that was such a dark time.
it really was.
It-
And when we talk about NFTs in the space, right? And you talk about different NFT projects that have come and gone. We talk about people that have rugged, maybe even soft rugged, like they just let it go to nothing. I mean, for those people who have, paid their school fees that way, would you ever say that they'd ever get their reimbursements ever?
I wouldn't hold your breath.
Okay. I'm speaking for the people of Balloonsville right now.
I wouldn't.
Um, uh,
Make smart money decisions. And also like look to see what it actually is. If it's just a picture that has no utility, that people are just saying it's gonna moon because it's cute. Need I say more?
okay, but it's cute. So there's that, right?
So many things are cute that I want to spend a bunch of money on that I'm not, like make smart choices.
Yeah.
Not to sound like a
You know,
mom. Make smart choices.
no, of course. The biggest thing that has ever happened on Solana is obviously FTX, right? And how FTX really ruined a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And then it also made a whole bunch of millionaires in this space simply because people bought at we already know quite a few of the members, yeah, like
So big brain
it,
who bought like a bajillion dollars of it at $8. I remember seeing his post and it actually gave me hope. Like if So Big Brain thinks at $8 we're coming back, I feel
yeah,
good about it. I really like him. I think he's a good guy. I've met him in person quite a few times. He's always so nice. Yeah, it ruined a lot of lives. It also, like you
yeah.
said, made a lot of money. It's just I think all of us kind of wish it just never happened.
A lot of people, and I think
Yeah.
for people that it actually affected them with their mental health, I think
Oh,
that was quite sad. I knew a lot of people in the space who were around and they had left.
yeah.
Looking at FTX itself as a case study, which I'm pretty sure in law would really become one of the biggest case studies amongst others. But this specifically, and how one was able to get away with everything that SBF was able to get away with
I
for
still
quite
don't.
some time. Neither do I. But
I still don't get it.
is it more ignorance, or is it because of the fact that all of this happened when there really wasn't any regulation in place that now is, sort of like being mitigated at this moment in time? What would you say a case study like that? What what are the goodness?
No, I
My
understand.
ang-
I understand. I think it was the perfect storm. I think it was early on in the industry days. People didn't know kind of what to look for. We were taking people at their word. He was meeting with all of the right people. He was meeting with all the big actors. He had the money behind him. He had his parents behind him, which to this day, I don't know how they're not also in jail.
yeah,
I just think a lot of things were missed because people didn't necessarily know what to look for. It was still very early. He's with all of these big politicians. Yes, he was a huge donor, but he was still, you see him with these reputable people, whether you like them or not. And in your brain, you're like, there's no way somebody this involved, which is crazy because all politicians are corrupt. You know, Nix that. It's just, I think people were kind of blinded by the presentation, who he was with, how much money FTX had. And you see all of that and you're like, well, so many millions of people trust him with my money. There's no way this could be bad. It
yeah.
was truly, in my opinion, just kind of the perfect storm of circumstances.
So looking at that as a case study, would you say that looking at that, it's sort of like the poster platform for what should not be done, and how other founders can actually look and learn from that, even though they might be, let's say, uh, passively or subconsciously doing certain things that they shouldn't be doing,
Yeah,
that
don't
they
steal
actually
people's
don't
money.
know.
Don't steal people's money and don't trade client funds. It's no, don't trade money that's not yours.
That is true. Although some people might actually say that if FTX didn't happen, FTX would be sitting on like a monumental amount of money. Have you seen the post that's been going around
I
where
have.
they actually spoke about all of SBF's early trades and what he actually invested in?
And my counter to that is, but he did it by stealing money.
You're
So
so right.
cool, but you did it by stealing money.
Yeah.
That kind of, in my opinion, negates everything. It makes it a moot point. You know, I had a bunch of Microsoft stock back when I was little, and it totally could have been worth $1 bajillion today, but I sold it. It's not really analogous, but yeah, that could have happened, but it didn't because something else happened. You know, he literally stole
Yeah.
money. And now I see him, it's apparently not him, somebody posting from his account that's just like glazing Trump. I swear to God, there's no way this guy gets a pardon. There's just no way. And he's trying so hard. If you look at his social media, it's
He
just,
is. And
it's not gonna work.
if you look at the guy from Silk Road who actually got pardoned, right?
I agree
Would
with
you
that one. That one I agree with for sure.
you tell me why?
So that was that. Yeah, that's Russ Ulbricht. I
Yes.
think they're two completely different things. He created the Silk Road. What people did on it, it had great uses, it had bad uses. I personally don't think he should be held accountable. You know, that would be like holding gun manufacturers liable for every murder that happens. You just don't do that.
Yeah.
Like I love that he got pardoned. I think I, not that it matters because I'm nobody, but I tweeted congrats at him. I don't think he did anything malicious. I don't think he did anything nefarious. BF stole millions of dollars of people's money. It's completely different.
Yeah.
I think Ross Ulbricht was originally, you know, I think he was falsely prosecuted. I don't think he should have. I don't even think he should have been in prison. And a lot of people disagree with that, and that's totally fine. That's my personal opinion.
I think in those days, maybe the SEC really wanted to put a guillotine on somebody, and this was the right type of person at the right time to do it. And maybe politically, it panned out the way that they wanted it to.
Mhm.
What would your thoughts be on, let's say, let's talk about what you just spoke about now and how when one actually looks at certain case studies like we have in the past and how certain ones really do have some sort of legs or like let's say for instance Russ Ulbricht, he got imprisoned, he was in prison for quite a monumental amount of time, got pardoned, and then you've got somebody like CZ who also went to jail and got pardoned. I know a lot of people actually look at that and they're like, maybe he should have actually stayed in there a little bit longer. But then you also look at certain people like SBF. If he is pardoned for interest sake and Trump decides, okay, he's going to give him a pardon, do you think that the backlash of that it will be monumental, and especially
Oh yeah.
for everything that has been going on
Oh yeah.
with the Trump family and what they've been associated with?
Even if it wasn't Trump, regardless of who pardons him, if he gets a pardon, it's gonna be awful. I think there's gonna be insane backlash. I think it's completely irrelevant who the politician is. I think just with the nature of his crimes and how much he stole and ruined people's lives, there's absolutely going to be backlash. I genuinely don't think I don't think it can be done. I think that there was just too much damage, and I pray that it doesn't happen. You know, you have some people saying that he got too much time in prison. It's like, what are you smoking? Like, I think he should be there for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But then you have to
And
say, was he taken advantage of by other people that had the money and the power and just kind of used him as a scapegoat? Like, I could totally get into a conspiracy about this if you wanted me to, which I'm not going to, but I think it's so messy to the point where I don't think he can get pardoned. I really don't.
you had actually mentioned it earlier about people using AI and, you know, thinking that that's their lawyer now. But in actual fact, what are your thoughts on AI? Is it accurate and in terms of legal opinion? And also, okay, there's that. But also, are you impartial to somebody coming to you and saying, look, I've done a little bit of research. This is what I found on Claude Code. And from that standpoint, I'm right and you're wrong.
That's not
How
a
does that
client that I
go?
want to take. That's a
Okay.
client. The second somebody says to me, hey, I drafted, like, it's a fine line. So I'm a partial AI law firm. I use AI. I use it sometimes. I'll throw my ideas in it and I'll say, can you organize this a little bit better for me? Or,
Yeah.
I'll have it automate some things. Like I draft some of the same documents all the time. I create a template, I throw in somebody's name, I have it automate some things. But it's not a replacement for an actual attorney. And we're seeing right now a slew of attorneys getting sanctioned, possibly getting their licenses taken away because they're submitting drafts to the court that are drafted by AI that are
Oh.
including cases that are hallucinated, like they're not real.
Oh
And
my.
it's so avoidable if you actually do the work yourself. I have clients come to me all the time. They're like, hey, I drafted this agreement with ChatGPT. Can I pay for you to review it? And I say no. And I say no because it'll be faster for me to draft it on my own than it's going to be to go through, review it, make all the changes, and just essentially end up redrafting it. So you're not only paying for the draft that I'm doing, you're also paying for my review time and my edit time. Whereas off the bat, it's just some attorneys will do that. I personally won't. Um, if I have somebody come to me saying like, hey, I did 6 hours of research on Claude or ChatGPT, this is what I want you to do, and they immediately come in here and tell me how to do my job, I can promise you that's not a good fit either. That'd be like going to a doctor and saying like, I'm pretty sure I know what's wrong with me. Here's what I want you to do. AI told me you need to operate on my finger. And the doctor's
Yeah.
like, well, that's strange because your toe is the thing that hurts. So you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it's almost information overload that there's a reason Claude and ChatGPT says, hey, I'm not a lawyer, by the way, I don't have a legal license.
Yes.
Get this done by a real attorney. And it's nice to have a conversation with somebody that understands the basics of what they're asking for. Like I said, if you want to go in and read like, hey, I think I need a trademark. Can you just give me the basics on trademarks? And then it spits it out. And then they call me and we have a conversation and I don't have to explain what classes of goods and services are. I don't have to explain, what it means to be in use or intent to use. That's awesome. But when a client comes to me with a trademark application already filled out and they go, hey, can you file this for me? No, probably not.
Yeah.
If you go ahead and file it yourself, I'm not going to immediately just trust an LLM model to do my job. And,
Yeah.
a lot of attorneys are using Chat or Claude or ChatGPT to assist them. Like I use it kind of in place of a paralegal. I get things done more efficiently that would traditionally take somebody X amount of hours. Like I very rarely do litigation work, but if I have to read through a deposition or even if I'm just, you know, I love pop culture lawsuits. I think they're fascinating. I will read through discovery of pop culture lawsuits. And, I was really excited for Blake Lively's trial and for that to go into depositions because I was so excited for the tea of the actors and actresses that were going to be deposed. And I would have used Claude. I would have thrown in a deposition transcript that's like 500 pages and I would say, summarize this for me. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm going to use it in practice or use it to draft documents that are getting submitted to court or that I'm sending out to a client. More than likely, I'll use it as an organizational tool, but it's not something to replace a real lawyer, and it should never be used as something to replace
Yeah.
a real lawyer, if that makes sense.
Well, no, it definitely does. If you're looking at somebody who's starting out, is building a project of some sort in Web3 and is looking to, let's say, have some sort of paperwork between him and employees or anybody that he's doing consultancy work for, whatever it is, would you then say that being able to draft a document that has, let's say, the bare basics or minimum and maybe some sort of like legal jargon, would you then say that that is okay? Or would you still prefer that they would go through a lawyer for that?
I'm obviously going to say they should go to an attorney, but it's better than having it. Typically it's better than having nothing.
Yeah.
But there are things that that attorneys draft know what to look for that LLMs might not catch, things that are common practice. The LLM is always going to look at things a little bit skewed. So in most cases, it's probably better than having nothing. but I would really suggest talking to an attorney. But it is better
Okay.
than, I mean, LegalZoom, better than nothing. Getting
Yeah.
those forms from something like LegalZoom, obviously better than nothing. But if you plan on your project being a long-term success and you want customized documents, spend a few $1,000s up front. It can save you so much more in the future.
And there you have it for anybody that is on the podcast and watching. Take the legal advice that's just been given to you.
No,
Go
not
out.
legal advice. I'm not
Oh.
an attorney. No, this is not legal advice.
Oh, pardon me. Okay, so then what do I say?
Please
Please
say
take-
this is not legal advice. I am an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. Unless I am your attorney and you're watching this, then you are my client. But if I'm not actually engaged with you through
Yeah.
an agreement, you are not my client.
And seeing as you're not the client, please make sure that you go and find a legal attorney who can
Yeah.
advise you better. And this was not financial advice or any
Definitely,
type of
maybe
advice.
life advice
at
certainly
all.
Life advice, not legal advice, and not financial advice.
Thank you so much. No. I'm so glad and grateful that you wanted to do this. And I think the best part about this is that everybody that has been watching has gotten maybe a little bit more of an idea of what they should do in the space and the education of when legal entities really become a thing and when you really need to go and get legal advice. So
Yeah,
for
and my
anybody that
consultations are free. So by all means, even if you want to just like email my firm or telegram me, which is the same as my Twitter handle, and you want to talk for 30 minutes about what you think you need, my consultations are free. If you hold me hostage for 2 hours, I'm probably going to say, hey, this one isn't free, but a 30-minute consultation to see if I can actually help you, always free. Always, because I'd rather tell you I can't help you and point you in the direction of somebody I can, or tell you I can help you, than you just not seek any sort of legal representation.
fantastic. And where can people find you?
Everywhere. On Twitter, Telegram, roaming the streets of Philly, at events. I actually really enjoy going to events and meeting people in person because the amount of people that have said to me, you're so much cooler / more fun in person than you are online. Sometimes I take it as a compliment. Sometimes I get a little offended. I'm not really sure which way to take it, but I'm unfortunately, you can find me.
Well, that's fantastic. Your handle on Twitter.
It's
What is
really,
it?
it's really, bear with me because it's very complicated. Okay. It's
Yeah.
Givner Ariel. It's my last name and my first name. Very.
There we go. For those of you who didn't get that, rewind and then get it again.
Givner Ariel,
because
or you can, my law firm page is just Givner Law. Again, really original.
fantastic. And the one thing that we do on the show is we try and pay it forward in a way where the guest that is here gets to tell us who they would like to see on the show and basically shout them out and say, listen, you got to get onto the show. So who would you like to see on the show?
I was originally thinking somebody, but I know he's not very doxed and doesn't do videos. So, and I know you like to do videos. So I am going to nominate one of my best friends. I do legal work for his company that I love. I'm chief legal. His name is Kid Paddle. He is the founder of Diversify. He's very involved in Lucid Drakes, now Hotheads. He is in MonkeDAO. You're up next, Kid Paddle.
You know what? Funny that you should say that because I just had Kid Paddle on a show.
No. All right. Okay. Let me rethink. And Kemo is not somebody I can nominate.
Kemo is? Would you like to see Kemo on the show?
I would love to see Kemo on the show.
You just want to see Kemo on the show for his hair, right? Oh, fun fact. I'm not sure if you've seen Kemo lately, but he actually cut a bit of his hair off. Yeah.
My heart,
You didn't know that.
like it literally just dropped.
Apologies.
I'm going to go yell at him. I'm going to say, A, I nominated you, and B, what the hell? Because your hair is beautiful. As I have
He does.
of hair, and he
Does.
people
He
have
does.
nice hair. Cherish your nice hair because there's those this very thin hair They would kill to have what you have.
That is true.
Rest
And
in peace.
Kemo does have beautiful locks, right? Like
I love it. He's just so nice. So
yeah.
I'm Kemo, you're up, dude.
There we go. Thank you so much, Ariel. It has been a wonderful experience. And for anybody that is out there that has not followed Ariel, please, by all means, get onto Twitter and go on to Givner Ariel. And
I'll try not to piss you off, but no problem.
No chances of that. and if she did, it's obviously well deserved. But anyway, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Absolutely loved you being here. And if ever you need to come on and speak to us about anything legal, please don't hesitate but to
I
come back
won't.
onto
You
the
just
show.
opened up a door that I don't know you wanted open.
Oh man, thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one. For anybody that has not been subscribing, please do subscribe. Give us a like.
Give him some love.
There we go. Yeah, and there we go. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy. Bye.